You don't have to teach somebody how to sell it. You were passionate about your book, but you didn't like the title, so you came up with the title. When you had the title that was right, you loved it. I work with Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
He loves the book. By the way, he gave it to all the people. He hated me because he said, I have so many books to read. I started reading your book and I couldn't put the damn thing down. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Can I use that as a quote? And so I got video of him talking about it. But he's telling me that he wrote the book, and he was going to call it 101 Motivating Stories That Will Change Your Life. But it's kind of logical, and it's, he was saying it bothered him that's what he was just going to call it. So it was after about a month of, sleeping, he woke.
Sit back and relax and get ready for another exclusive episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast with Lopez.
This episode is brought to you by the best AI software online called Goody. That's Goody. Goody will help you create all content for your blogs, websites, newsletters, articles, ads, and even pictures, LinkedIn posts, Twitter, you name it. All you got to do is go to lopezthesane.com/Goody. That's Goody. And the best part about Goody is absolutely free. That's right. It's free for the first 7 days. You can cancel at any time. Goody will help you create all your contents for your blogs and websites online. And it's 100% absolutely free, full access for the first 7 days. All you got to do, just go to my website. That's lopezthesane.com/Goody. That's Goody. Or just click the link in the show notes and get started today. Welcome to another episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Lopez. So like and share this episode. Any questions, any concerns, anything you need any help with, feel free to send me a DM at my Instagram. The links will be in the show notes. And you can also go to my website at lopezthesane.com, and that will be in the show notes as well. So with that being said, today I have another special guest for you. My guest today is one of America's leading behavioral management and business marketing specialists. He's been featured on ABC, Fox News Radio, NPR, CBS, Forbes, Sirius XM Radio, and the Los Angeles Times. For 13 years, he's ran one of Southern California's leading behavioral management firms, working with a who's who of American businesses. Early in his career, he ran an advertising agency in Montreal, working with a wide range of Fortune 500 companies and smaller firms. My special guest today is James I. Bond. Welcome to the show. So, where you from?
We're originally from Montreal.
Okay, that's nice. So how'd you get in the world of marketing and advertising? Because this is not something that most people don't go to school for, especially as long as you've been doing it. So how'd you get started?
Well, actually, I went to college, but I never completed it. And I went to college, and they put me in mechanical engineering because I was good at math. But they didn't realize I loved art and English and stuff like that. And I worked part-time as a coach with a famous photographer in Montreal. Montreal was really cool because It's cheaper than New York for a lot of people. So a lot of New York companies would use Montreal photographers, and Montreal photographers would often come from Europe. They'd come from Europe to Montreal, and then they do work in America. And I ended up working with a couple of famous photographers, and I learned photography, and I ended up working in a studio. As I worked my way up, I eventually realized that advertising is the boss of photography. And so I got involved in advertising and eventually built an advertising agency. When I did that, I learned that that marketing is the boss of advertising, because advertising is, communicating a message, trying to sell stuff, but you're still communicating a message. Whereas marketing is, what's the message we want? What's the process we want? As time went on, I actually got involved with and became one of America's leaders in behavioral management, because I realized that behavioral management is the boss of marketing. It's like, you don't just want to communicate a message. What do you want? You want people to buy your product. You want people to figure stuff out, to understand your business. I'm lucky because I had famous people like Warren Buffett's team. When Warren Buffett started buying companies, they brought me in because, to change the habits and behaviors of a lot of people. They brought me in. The first place was a bank in Southern California that Warren Buffett bought. When he started buying companies, he invests, but he would also buy companies, or he started buying companies. And so we started with a bank, and all the managers in the bank, he wanted them to sell. And they were like, well, I became a manager. Do I have to sell? And he wanted somebody to make him love selling. And so I got him to love selling. So they thought it was really cool, because I used to hate selling. I was in business with my brother when I had my advertising agency, and he could outsell me like crazy. He loved selling. I hated selling. As time went on, I learned that I actually had an opportunity to win Avon Cosmetics in Canada. And we went in there, we're sitting there, and the buyer for Avon says, hey, to my brother John, and I'm sitting there, but he's talking to my brother John, and he says, hey, John, it's between you and another company. I'd rather use the other company. I'd rather use you guys, work with you guys in the other company, but frankly, your price is higher. And so my brother leans across the desk and whispers, why do you think the other guy's price is so cheap? There's a long pause, and then he goes, okay, fine, let me write you up a purchase order. And I thought, like, what the hell? He's going to hire us because we're more expensive? What? And that became the beginning for me of understanding, marketing. And I became fascinated by the science of marketing. I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. We work our way up. I work my way up. Eventually, family and business doesn't always mix. I love my brother dearly, but not in business. So, but I worked my way up, and eventually won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Abbott Laboratories, Seagram's, their world's headquarters is there. And I had the opportunity to win an anti-drug campaign in America. And I came up with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And then I lost. And what I lost to, it scared the hell out of me. It was anti-drug campaign. It was a guy holding an egg, a video of a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain, and cracking a shell and dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? And when I saw that, two things happened. The first thing was, I recognize this is infinitely more powerful than my logic. This is emotion. I had logical reasons why you shouldn't do drugs, and he's like doing this one story with this guy with the egg, and suddenly that's much more powerful. I also realized it's emotional selling, and I had no idea how to do emotional selling, and it freaked me out because I said I'm an advertiser. How can I be in advertising and marketing and business and not know how to do emotional selling? So I realized they don't teach emotional selling in school.
No.
And so I went to the library, but there's no real books on it. There's superficial stuff, but no real books talking about it. And so I decided to put a box next to my computer, and I called it the passion box. And I like to write stuff on a 3x5 card if I can't get a copy of something or an ad or something like that. And I would write on a 3x5 card. In that case, I wrote "Your Brain on Drugs," so I'd remember the ad, and I put it in the box. And I would start putting all kinds of things in the box that are emotional, including phrases. Like President John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I went like, that's interesting. Malcolm X said, "We didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us." It's like, wow, these are great lines, and there's something emotional about it. He also said, which a lot of people don't realize, Malcolm X said this. He said, "When you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything."
Yeah.
These are powerful lines. It's more powerful than saying, "Hey, you got to stand for something." That's what we normally say. But he said this thing. So when we moved to California, and about 10 years later, and so my passion box was full. You can imagine in 10 years how much stuff I saved him. And I met John Gray. And John Gray's a writer, and he was telling me that he wrote this book, Men, Women, and Relationships. And people loved this book. They said, "Man, that book changed my life. It's the most incredible relationship book I've ever read." But almost nobody was buying it. So he's at a seminar trying to sell this book, and he says something, and all the women start laughing like crazy, and all the men look at the women like, "What's so funny about what he just said?" And then he goes, "Well, you see, there's some things that women get and men don't get. There's some things that men laugh at and women don't laugh at. And there's some things that everybody gets." And one of the women says, "Yeah, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet do you think men are from?" And he says, "I guess men are from Mars." What do you think? And everybody started laughing. And when he got home, he said, "Okay, wait, that was pretty cool." People responded more to that than to me talking about my book. Men are from Mars. So if men are from Mars, where are women from? Well, women are from Venus. Venus is the god of love, right?
Yeah.
What if I change the title of my book to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And then the same book, but just put some references to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus in the book. What do you think happened? He's telling me almost overnight, 500,000 people bought my book. I'm like, whoa. He eventually sold 50 million books, not 50,000, 50 million. 20,000 to 50 million books just because he changed the title?
Yeah.
Whoa, and it blew my mind. And so when I got home, I had a copy of the book. I was going to put the book in my passion box. And then I stopped and I said, wait a second, this is a metaphor. Men aren't really from a different planet. I know all the women out there probably think we are sometimes. Yeah, the way we act, I could get it, okay? But we're not really from a different planet. Let's start there, okay? But it's a metaphor. He's basically saying, men and women are so different that sometimes it's almost like we're from different planets. That's basically Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, what it means. And I realized the guy with the egg, dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan, was basically a metaphor too. He was saying, here's your brain, They're probably sitting around a table and thinking, hey, we got to do an ad to get people to stop taking drugs. So what would be a really cool thing to talk about? Well, when you take drugs, what happens? And someone probably said, well, it fries your brain. Okay, what else gets fried? An egg. Let's have an egg and say, here's your brain on drugs. And that's how they came up with the idea. So I decided, so I realized our metaphor is the secret to emotional selling. Like my product is just like, what is it like? And have fun with how you want to be creative about that. So I took the passion box and I dumped it on my bed because I had a ton of stuff. So I wanted to really spread it out to see if metaphors is the only, brain trigger, the emotional selling. And it turns out that it's one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. And I thought my brain was going to explode if I just figured out something that nobody's figured out, So because I was a consultant, I had clients. We were living in Southern California. I had clients, like marketing clients and behavioral management clients. And I started applying it on clients, and it blew my mind because suddenly sales exploded. And I went like, whoa, if I just figured out something nobody else has figured out. There were these three guys who had a construction company that I was working with. And it was 10 years old. After 10 years, they made $2 million of sales. That's not bad. $2 million of sales, right? Ha! I said it. Just kidding. I got to practice brain glue on them. They went from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, and then 32 million they reached 2 years later. And I freaked out because I was like, is this legal? Like, what am I just I'm not supposed to be doing? Why he is making so much money? But it turns out that people make a fortune who apply this. And also I talk about people who make a fortune, because when you start to understand how it works, how these tools work, you realize like, wow, this is really powerful. I'll give you some examples. So let's say you create a glue, okay? And it's a really cool glue. There's some better glues, but I think this is a really cool glue. So glue, you start with a metaphor. It's just like what? It's as strong as an elephant, okay? Well, there's a tool, a brain glue tool that's called alliteration, the repetition of sound. And it's like Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok, Marilyn Monroe. You think it's a coincidence that they have sounds that repeat?
Yeah.
No. And so they're thinking glue. So Gorilla Glue, let's call it Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue exploded in sales because they came up with this tool that uses a metaphor. It's like it's glue that's strong enough that it's like a gorilla, and good Gorilla Glue. It sticks together. There's Famous Amos. Famous Amos cookies. He was fabulous, okay? And he made some of the most incredible chocolate chip cookies you've ever had. They're small things and they're fun and everything else. But part of why it became so famous was because of the name, Famous Amos. It sticks together like glue. So, if you take these terms like, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit. Yeah. Okay, O.J. Simpson in a trial with Johnny Cochran. I mean, Johnny Cochran's friend actually came up with the phrase. But I remember there were 2 women who were being interviewed after the trial, and the interviewer said, with all that evidence against O.J., how come you found him not guilty? And there were 2 of them. One of them said it while the other one's nodding her head in agreement. And she said, we knew if the glove don't fit, you have to acquit. The glove didn't fit. We had to acquit. It sticks to the brain like glue.
Yeah.
If you take and so rhyme is one of those tools that works really well. There's also this one called chiasmus. That's what, it's a flip, So I'll give you an example. So I'll give you the example with Malcolm X. We didn't stand. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock landed on us. The opposite. Okay. When you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. Flip. All for one and one for all.
Yeah.
And it's called chiasmus, which is this flip. And so when you say something, I got humor that goes like this. It goes. I'd rather wake up and pee than pee and wake up. How about that one? Okay.
Yeah.
When you stand for nothing, you fall for. It's more powerful when you say it as a flip, than if you just say, hey, And I love that phrase. When you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. All of us, we talk to people. We try to talk somebody into something. So we'll say something like, hey, come on, you got to stand for something. And they'll accept it or not accept it. But when you use that tool, when you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything, it sticks to the brain. And people go like, oh, wow, And there's just so many of these tools that stick to the brain. Rhyme is a popular one.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking of Jack and Jill went up the hill. I could be at my deathbed and someone said, hey, James, what? I'm dying, what? But Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pill of what? I haven't heard this for
years.
I'm old, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, maybe. And yet I still remember it like it was yesterday. So there's certain things that stick to the brain like glue. And it's really powerful that when you can come up with, you come up with a product and you're trying to, sell it. And if you can come up with a name that's really cool, then it blows your mind, but it gets people buying your product like crazy. There's a mom and son in Montana, in Utah, and they love Shark Tank, the TV show Shark Tank. Mm-hmm. And so the mom said to the son, wouldn't it be cool if we can actually invent a product and get on Shark Tank, we'll probably get rich because if they invest in us. So they're thinking, oh yeah, that's really a cool idea. Of course, if you have a job, Shark Tank's awesome. And so it took about a month, and the mom was constipated. So when she went to the bathroom, she had a hard time. So the doctor said to her, when you're on the toilet, if you raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the floor, it helps. It changes the shape of your body, and it becomes easier going to the bathroom. I don't want to get too much into this, but and they're going, oh, wow, that's really a cool idea. And then she says to her son, maybe that's something we should come up with, a little toilet stool that wraps around the toilet. And when people are on the toilet, they slide it out and put their feet on it if they want. That's a really cool idea. So they found a manufacturer to manufacture it for them. And they were able to buy them for like about $4 or $5 each, and they could sell it for $20. So, we can make some pretty good money, but we need a cool name for it. So they said they start with a logical name. And it's a toilet stool. But they're going, that's not a really good name, toilet stool, So what's another word for toilet? Potty, like porta potty. You ever see those? Porta potty. So potty. Potty's a cool name, and you're kind of squatting. Squatty potty. Let's call it the squatty potty. Squatty potty sales exploded. These are two people with no business experience. In less than 2 years, they had $100 million of sales. All because of the name. I was in a hospital just a couple of months ago, almost 3 months ago, for heart bypass surgery. Not fun. And I'm sitting and talking to a nurse, and she says, so what do you do? So I said, I just wrote this book, Brain Glue, and I start telling her the story of Squatty Potty. She says, I got to tell you this. I'm a nurse. I know that you should raise your feet off the ground. So I got this little stool that I put my feet on. But I was in a store, and I saw Squatty Potty, and I loved it so much I bought it. I said, you bought it even though you already have a stool? He said, yeah, it's so cool. He said, now I own the Squatty Potty. Just because you like the name? It's like, what?
Yeah.
But it's amazing, it's like when you start to learn this. So how I got an idea. How would you like to invent a product, like one of the greatest products, and somebody steals the idea from you, and they make a fortune and you starve to death? Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, yeah.
No, not at all. Okay, so the head of Post Cereals that competes with Kellogg's came up. They were trying to come up with a product that's much better than stuff they sell, like cereals and stuff like that, because Kellogg's was beating them. So they came up with this idea of this little cake that you put strawberries, blueberry, raspberry inside it, and you put it in your toaster. And when it comes up out of the toaster, you got this nice warm cake you could eat. They said, that's a great idea. They came up with this, and they called it Country Squares. Okay. You probably know what I'm going to compete with here. So Country Squares. And 3 months, they were so excited about it that 3 months before they launched it, the head of the company bragged to the media and said, we got this new product. Isn't this cool? We call it Country Squares, and you put it in the toaster and all that stuff. The head of Kellogg saw this 3 months before they launched it and said, hey, guys, look at this. Look at what they're making. We got to do the same thing. Okay, this is incredible, that product, but we need a better name. So he's thinking, so let's see what happens. It pops out of the toaster. So pop, we got to have pop. And back then, Andy Warhol was the famous pop artist. They call him a pop artist. He was an artist that did all kinds of really cool stuff. Pop art. Pop-Tart. Let's call it Pop-Tarts. Okay? And they launched it 1 week before Country Squares got launched, of course.
Oh, man.
Okay. Pop-Tarts exploded. They sold more than any other product that Kellogg's had. In fact, they sold so many of it that they ran out of product like almost immediately. So what he did was he didn't want Country Squares to become successful, so he ran apologies in newspapers saying, I am so sorry we ran out of Pop-Tarts, but just hold on for a couple of days and we'll get more of it in the store. Nobody bought Country Squares. Pop-Tarts exploded in sales. I was seeing this article just a while back, and it said they sold 3 billion Pop-Tarts this year alone, okay? And Country Squares, they stopped selling it after a few months, even though they invented it, because they didn't have as good a name. And that's why you want, the more we can understand a good name. Well, I was thinking of this. So let's say your name is I Love Lucy. I mean, look at I Love Lucy, okay? How did they come up with the name I Love Lucy, which is a cool name, and turned it into a blockbuster?
Yeah.
They had a good show, but so it's Lucille Ball, okay, L. So we'll call it Lucy because that's everybody, my name is Lucille, but everybody calls me Lucy. So we should have the name Lucy in our name of our show. Well, Lucy begins with the letter L, So what are other words that begin with L? Lucky Lucy. There's a good show name. Okay, that's one. Like, love. I love Lucy. Hey, there we go. I love Lucy. That's a cool name. That's how they came up with it, because it's alliteration, a repetition of sound. And so when people understand these tools, they start applying it to their business or, the other things that they're working on, including just trying to persuade people. And it's amazing that it just blows people's minds, but it works. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's I actually, my second book I wrote is called Love Can't Wait. Right. And when but back, I didn't know any of this back then. This is like 8 years ago. I was just sitting down one day, and I'm just kind of in my mind thinking, well, I need a book title. I said, okay, so what is this? Now I had the book all written, the whole thing, right? So I'm thinking, what is this book really about at the end of the day? And I said, it's really about loving yourself, before you even get into a relationship with anybody, right? So I was listening to an interview, right, with I think the guy used to own a travel agency, and he was talking about the thing that made him stick out with his agency. He didn't when people would come in with the set up trips or whatever, regardless of what it was, hotel, flight or whatever, they would come straight to the office. He didn't have them sitting in the lounge waiting around, right? So I said, oh, wait a minute. So I was like, wait a minute. Love can't wait. And that's how I came up with the title. But I didn't know. I was just sitting around. I was just thinking different ideas were coming in or whatever, And then, first I thought I had another title. I think it was something like something silly, but it was a very bad title. And when my book got released, man, that thing took off. I was shocked. I didn't know I didn't know what to do with the money.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, really. But you know why it worked? Because it's passionate. Yeah. I hated selling when I was young, and I went to a Zig Ziglar workshop when I was young, and Zig Ziglar had this great line. He said, "Selling is nothing more than a transference of passion." If you're passionate and you can put passion into describing it, then you can sell a lot more. I mean, it's just so you want so if you have a movie I love the movie Hidden Figures. You ever see Hidden Figures with the three women from NASA?
Yeah.
Fabulous. I love that movie. I mean, it's one of the most favorite movies that I ever saw. You don't have to tell me how to sell it. I love it when we are passionate about something, and you don't have to teach somebody how to sell it. You were passionate about your book, but you didn't like the title, so you came up with the title. When you had the title that was right, you loved it. I work with Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
He loves the book. By the way, he gave it to all the people. And he hated me because he said, I have so many books to read. I started reading your book and I couldn't put the damn thing down. I'm like, I'm sorry. Can I use that as a quote? And then, so I got video of him talking about it. But he's telling me that he wrote the book, and he was going to call it 101 Motivating Stories That Will Change Your Life. But it's kind of logical, and it's, he was saying it bothered him that's what he was just going to call it. So it was after about a month of, sleeping, he woke up and he went, chicken soup makes you feel good. What if I called the book Chicken Soup for the Spirit? That would be cool. He said it doesn't really work, but it's kind of close. Chicken soup for the spirit. He said after about a weekend of sleepless nights, he realized SOUP, soup, SOUL, soul, soup, soul, chicken soup for the soul. That works. And suddenly he was excited about it. He came up with it. You know, I didn't invent brain glue. I invented the term brain glue, but brain glue, we have it inside us because we're emotional. We know if you're talking to somebody and you're emotional, it works. And for him, it was the same thing. It was emotional. You know, it's chicken soup for the soul. Yeah, that's what this book is about, you know? And he told me he wrote 60 other bestsellers, but none of them all of them had logical titles. This was the only book that really had an emotional title. And this sold 500. He sold 100 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books and 400 million of the other. Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Cancer Survivor Soul, etc. That's 500 million books. That's a lot. Next to the Bible, it's the next biggest selling book. Okay.
Yeah.
But it sold so well, because there were great stories, but it also sold well because the title resonated with people. Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing, you know. I didn't realize how powerful a book title. Well, not only a book title, just any title of almost anything. The way you speak, could be a banner, advertising. I didn't realize how it hooked people until I got older. Yeah,
exactly. I have this friend that was basically closed-minded, and I'm trying to tell him, you know, can you be more open-minded? It'll really help you. But if I said that, he would have said, shut up, go away. Don't tell me I'm closed. That's how it works. So I'm thinking, what's a good way to say this? So I want him to have an open mind. So what else works better when it's open? An umbrella works great when it's open.
Yeah.
And a parachute. How do you like to jump out of the plane and the parachute doesn't work? No. Okay, parachute works better when it's open. A book. You could buy a book, but if you don't open it, you're never going to benefit from it, or you probably won't. Okay. So I thought, let's pick a parachute. So I said to him, your mind is like a parachute. It works better when it's open. And he goes, Why, you think I have a closed mind? I said, well, I'm not saying that, but what I want you to know, that your mind is like a parachute. It works better when it's open, doesn't it? He says, yeah, why? What do you think? And then we got into a conversation. But if I would have told him, you got a closed mind, he would have said, shut up, go away, screw off, My friend, he's, crazy sometimes, but he's good. Yeah. So but I just think, when we learn how to use these tools, it helps.
Yeah. So what's it like working with big companies? Because, we see a lot of commercials on TV and, we see these taglines. They don't do it well.
No, they don't.
Sometimes they're saying and doing stuff in the commercials, especially when it's around the Super Bowl. I have no clue what the product is, what it does most of the time. So how is it working with big companies?
So big companies have an advantage because they can spend like $5-10 million. If you're going to spend that much money, then it's going to stick, even though, but brain glue works while it helps small. So there are these two guys in Southern California. Sort of a funny story about this guy. These guys would love sitting naked in their backyard, but I don't have no idea why. But anyway, they're really into that. And they weren't gay or anything. They were just buddies, but they lived together. They shared a house, So they decided that the juices out there there aren't enough good natural juices out there. So they wanted to come up with a natural juice that's better than the juices that are out there. And the main juices that was out there, I think they still exist, is Odwalla, which is owned by Coca-Cola. Okay, Odwalla juice, which I never heard of, but apparently it's a major juice. And so they're thinking, well, we got this juice and we think it's better than Odwalla and all these other juices. So let's see if we can create it and come up with a name. Because they're into laying naked, they came up with the name, why don't we call it Naked Juice? but let's not make it too big because we don't want to get embarrassed and all that stuff. So it was fine. So they launched Naked Juice, and people loved the juice, and it sold really well. So then they had some money, and they hired a graphic artist to make a standardized label that would go on all the different juices, different colors, but the same, good label. And so the graphic artist said, "Hey, man, I'm going to make the word naked big." And they went, "Oh, I don't think you should say." Yeah, I'm going to make it really big. Okay, fine. And he made the labels for the juices with Naked Juice. Mm-hmm. Sales exploded, passed Odwalla, which is owned by Coca-Cola, to become the largest selling natural juice in America. Naked Juice. It's really good. They make good juice.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Naked Juice. It grabs your attention. I work with Warren Buffett's team. Okay, Warren Buffett. They brought me in when they started buying businesses, and Warren Buffett has great lines. He says, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked." It's like, what? Yeah. Okay. But naked grabs your attention, Naked Juice grabs your attention. So when you understand keywords and you can use keywords, it really grabs your attention. There was an ad. I have a TV next to my computer. Okay. I don't normally have it on, but I had it on this day for whatever reason. I'm doing work on a computer. And then I have a commercial for Blue Emu. And Blue Emu is the stuff that if you have arthritis, you put it on your joints, and your elbows and stuff like that. Blue Emu. I don't care, And they had a famous baseball player who was talking, and I was barely not even listening to him until he said this. He said, "Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink." What did he just say? What did he just say? And from that moment forward, I was like watching TV to see what the heck is he talking about. It works fast and you won't stink. But that's a trigger word. And so there's certain trigger words. I was working with a finance company, and they would review somebody's insurance policy. And they would look at the insurance policy and find a bunch of problems on it or errors or whatever else it is. And they would say, "Hey, did you see the insurance policy? There's a lot of stuff on here that I don't think you'll like." People go, "Oh, okay, let me see it," and blah, blah, get into conversation. But I taught them, let's use the word, let me remember this word. Anyway, a tricky word, okay? I don't want you to vomit. It's vomit is the word, okay? Okay. And I said, let's do this. You look at, let's pick somebody and I'll sit with you and I'll say this, okay? So we're sitting with this prospect, and I said, we're looking at your insurance policy. I don't want you to vomit, but have you seen what's in this? And they went, what? Because I used the trigger word vomit. I'm teaching them vomit. What? They would say, if you get old, like 80 years old, and you don't have any money, you run out of money, you got to get a job. So who's going to hire you? I guess Walmart could hire you. McDonald's could hire you. They need somebody who's going to clean the vomit out of the parking lot. So I guess they could hire you. And people go like, what? What? It's the trigger word, vomit. It's like dirty. Would you use the word dirty on, a product you had? How about the movies, Dirty Dancing, Dirty Harry, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? I mean, like, they recognize, would you use the word ugly? How about the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? I mean, it's trigger words that just wake up your mind. So it's really cool, because when you start to understand these tools, people start having fun with it, and they go like, oh wow, that would be really cool. So for all the people of your audience here, a good tool to start with is metaphor. And you do it this way. You complete the sentence, my product or idea is just like what? And pick a crazy one, okay? My book is so good, it grabs your attention. It's like a naked man running through your backyard, Does that grab your attention? Well, if you want people to grab your attention, here's the naked man running through your backyard, So, but just have fun with it. And then, come up with the craziest idea possible. My book, my product or my book is just like, and you have fun with it. You don't have to pick that one, but at least it'll get your ideas going, your mind going, it'll get you brainstorming, so you'll start to come up with something that's really good.
Yeah, man. And a lot of this stuff can be applied in almost every aspect of your life, especially
persuasion.
Exactly.
Persuasion. You're trying to persuade somebody. That's what I'll go back to President John F. Kennedy and Malcolm X. I love their quotes, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. He's trying to get people to submit, to help, and Malcolm X, with his, it's just fabulous. It's just it works because it helps us interact with them. So we say something and they go, huh? Yeah, that's what you want. Whoa, look at that. What's this? The book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I was in a bookstore. I'm looking at book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? What the heck's that? Picked it up, which just gets you to buy it. You have to pick it up first, right? And that, that's part of how they sell so much. So if you're trying to sell something, an idea or a product, you want to wake up the brain. And that's what brain glue is all about. It wakes up the brain so people go,
Yeah. So how did you know you were good at this? At what point did you know you're like, hey, you know what? I can do this. I can show other people how to do this. How did you know?
Well, it took a while, but as a consultant, I get to practice on clients. And usually as a consultant, we do 80-20. 80% of the stuff we do, we know works. It's the easy stuff. And 20% of the stuff, we'll experiment. Hey, so when I came up with brain glue, I would start applying it to clients and suddenly had fantastic results. I was saying I had these three construction guys, and I took them from they had 2 million of sales after 10 years. And in 1 year, I took them to 10 million of sales, and then they reached 32 million 2 years later by changing how we define their company. And prospects started laughing. We call them the fire extinguisher for insurance companies. You're a fire extinguisher? Yeah. Every time you get a client that has a fire, call us. We're your fire extinguisher. Prospects would laugh, but they would call because they remembered us. Because fire, I said to these three guys, so every time an insurance company has a client that has a fire, what's a trigger word? And they went, I don't know. I said, think about it. Every time they have a fire, and one of the guys says, is it the word fire? Yeah, so let's come up with something that has fire in it, and we'll use that. And it turned out to be fantastically successul. But so it's just, I got to practice with clients, and we tried stuff. But it works. I have this guy with I'm getting my hair cut, and this guy says, I'm thinking of starting a franchise for a haircutting franchise. What would be a really cool name, do you think? And all these people are in the haircutting place. And I said, well, haircut, haircut. How about Haircut Hero? We're haircut heroes. And they went, whoa, that's a cool name. Haircut Heroes. That's a cool name for a haircut place.
Yeah. Yeah. So how'd you come up with a new book title?
My book title had three. This is the third name for it. This is the one that's permanent, okay? Because the book is all about brain glue. But I was reading about this guy Carey Smith, who had a fan company, made really big fans, okay? For farms. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And he called it this weird name, something fans, whatever it was, and it's just it's sold okay, fine. It's like in a barn. If you have horses or cows, you're not going to put air conditioning. You put a fan, In a big warehouse, they often don't put air conditioning. They put fans. Mm-hmm. And so he was selling them pretty well. And some guy was asking him, what's your fan like? He said, well, it's a big ass fan. It's a big ass fan? Yeah. Whoa, okay. He says, yeah, they have to be big ass fans if you're in a barn, And he went, so he was floored by the fact that the guy was blown away by big ass fans. Whoa. And so he's thinking, what if I run an ad for big ass fans? He ran an ad and it sold like crazy. So he went, maybe I should change the name of the product in my company to Big Ass Fans. Sales skyrocketed. He made a fortune, okay? So I'm thinking, okay, ass. There's a word I could use. So the first title of my book was Dump Your Half-Ass Marketing Strategy. And it sold really well. But then Amazon contacted me and said, we're going to stop you from advertising on Amazon because we don't like swear words. I'm like, oh, really? You're kidding. Nah. I said, no. Yeah, we don't want a swear word in your book, So I'm like, oh. And I had 80 reviews. When you get about 100 reviews on a book, Amazon starts promoting you even more, And so I said, well, I got 80 reviews. Would you let me change the title and keep the reviews? And they said, well, we don't normally do it, but because we're pushing you to change the title, okay, but only this. So me, like an idiot, because I'm a logical guy, I came up with a logical title. Sell More with a Right Brain Marketing Strategy was the title.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it sold okay. But when I met Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, he said, I love your book. I'm giving copies to everybody in my company. I'm forcing them to use it and apply it and everything else. I said, oh, wow, that's great. Could I get your quote for it? Would you give me a quote for it? He said, on one condition. What? You got to change the title of your book. I said, like, really? He said, yeah, your whole book's about brain glue. You're teaching us how to sell emotionally, and you got a logical title. What are you doing? You're an idiot. I said, I'm sorry. He said, no, you got to change the title. You're teaching us to sell emotionally, and you got a logical title. You got to change the title to brain glue, because that's what the whole book is about. I'm like, do I have to? He said, yes. And then I'll give you videos and everything else. I love your book. And so I had to change the title. But it's one of the things, when we're coming up with a title, you always start with a logical title. Like my book is whatever else it is, okay? Like Jack Canfield said, it's 101 stories that will, motivate you, whatever. But then from that point forward, once you have the logic, then you want to change. You want to come up with an emotional way to describe it. Like you had with yours, you had your title, and then you said, it's not really working with me. I want a title that's gonna help people understand emotionally what this is. And you came up with an awesome title, and that's what we want. Is we start with a logical title like toilet stool, and then you work on that. And you apply brain glue tools, but you work on that, and you come up with a better name. And, that's basically how it works. So logic is great. We understand that. If we're trying to solve a problem or invent a product or whatever else it is, we'll often use logic. Got it. We're logical people. But when you describe it, you have to, I'll go back to what Zig Ziglar said. Selling is nothing more than a transference of passion. You have to have a passionate way that you describe it, because that triggers the emotion side of the brain. And they go, whoa, hey, yeah, let's get that, and basically that's the essence of all this is you have to be emotional if you want people to buy a lot of your products or to buy into what you're trying to sell or say.
That's great, man. So if people wanted to find out more about you and where to get your book, where would they go to?
Well, yeah, Yes Brain Glue is a good way to do it. If you go to yesbrainglue.com, then I've got lots of information on that and some quotes and things there, but elements of it also. I think they'll like that. Yesbrainglue.com.
There you have it. Like, share this episode. Go get the book. I'm going to get my copy. Until next time, we're out. Peace.